Today's guest is Andrew Maff, founder and CEO of Blue Tusker.
Very first thing I do is I look at their storefront and I want to see.
So, what kind of results have you seen by having that buy with Prime on the website?
So we were just sending people straight to the listing and say, like,
how do you know that the DTC is working properly?
So everyone likes to look at theirs very differently, right?
So what kind of impact those will have on valuation of the company?
But the reality is they're actually selling the data that they're getting out of the software.
Ecom Squeezed podcast.
Today, I'm excited to sit down with a digital marketing expert who knows exactly what it takes to scale an e-commerce brand the right way. My guest is Andrew Maff, founder and CEO of Blue Tusker, a full-service digital marketing agency that helps e-commerce brands grow across platforms like Amazon, Spotify, Walmart, and beyond. Andrew has been helping brands not just to sell more, but to build actual value, especially by helping Amazon first business shift towards owning more of their customers' journey through DTC. In today's topic, we are going to discuss if you're only selling on Amazon, your business might be worth half as much as you think. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the nice intro. Oh, you're just teeing me up to compliment myself 500 times. That's fun. I've been in the e-commerce space, e-commerce marketing for I think like 16 or 17 years now. It's pretty much more or less all I've ever done. I've been the owner of other agencies besides just Blue Tusker. I was the partner of another agency. We exited that in late 2019. That was pretty much an Amazon-focused agency. I've worked in multiple eight-figure brands that were probably, if I had to put a number to it, probably about 80% Amazon, about 20% D2C. So this is pretty much all I've ever done. And in every scenario, one way or another, being solely reliant on Amazon has just been a thorn in my side. And so that's kind of why that tends to be what I just talk about a lot, I would say.
Yeah, great. I want to start with the first question. I run an agency as well, so I do communicate with a lot of sellers. And the first thing that that I notice that they are only focusing on Amazon, and they think it's a valuable brand for them. So what's wrong with that? How can you change that thinking?
So I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with it, right? Because every business is very different. If it was my business, would I do that differently? Absolutely. However, maybe my goals are different. The one thing that Amazon absolutely has going for it is it's so, and there's going to be a ton of people that listen to this that hate this comment, but it's so easy, right? Like, you do your SEO correct the first time, you get some really good product images, you make your listing look good, you run your ads. Your ads are realistically, it's just product keyword or product competitive ASIN, and like more or less that's it. So running marketing on Amazon's really easy. I'm not an operational expert, but I know that if you're doing FBA, you're just sending a giant pallet and then you're done. So like it's super easy to do. So to scale an Amazon business as a individual to a seven-figure brand is not crazy complicated as long as you're willing to put in some of the work. The issue becomes when you want to look at scaling it significantly past that, and you're looking at more long-term growth, or you're looking at, a lot of Amazon sellers, they kind of do like the arbitrage, or they do that stuff where it's like, we're just going to sell a bunch of products that have nothing to do with each other, and it's just because we found a hole in the market. D2C is not going to be for you, right? Like there's no way to bring an audience together to resonate with the 500 different random products that you have. But one of the interesting statistics I saw, I think it was last year, I saw this in some write-up. Actually, I think it was like 2 years ago. It was around the time Thrasio started falling apart. But basically, if you are an Amazon FBA business and you hit, let's say, 10 million a year, if you go to exit, you're going to exit for about a 2 to 3x EBITDA. Right? So basically what they're buying from you is, products you may have in stock, your process, obviously projected profits coming in, the standard stuff. If you're a D2C business, that almost doubles. That jumps up to closer to I think it's like a 3 to like 5.5 or 6x EBITDA. And now typically it's because you're looking at significantly more assets that you have, right? You have a social media following, you have an email list, you have all of this data coming into your website. Plus, you now have a significantly larger buyer pool, right? Back then, you had the aggregators. So you had like the Thrasios of the world that would just gobble up Amazon brands and really had all the brands that they bought had nothing to do with each other. Whereas when you go to D2C and you're looking to exit one day, you're now opening up to a much larger buyer pool of people that theoretically could actually continue to grow your business and even leverage your audience in a different way. So if you sell, fishing stuff, you now can open yourself up to potentially businesses that sell hunting things and stuff like that, where all of a sudden now they can leverage your data and upsell their own customers. So now what you have is significantly more valuable to them because it can help them grow their existing business. So that big jump, that significantly larger exit is very attractive. But then you look at not everyone's always thinking when am I going to exit? That could be a decade from now. It could be forever. The other thing I look at is I actually just ran these numbers for a presentation I did earlier this year. Last year, so looking at the 5 years prior of 2024, on average, year over year, FBA fees increased by 10%. CPCs increased by 8%, and competition increased by 6%. I had to do that presentation at Prosper this year, and they didn't tell me that the presentation was going to be right next to Amazon's booth, which was hilarious because I'm just sitting there telling people hey, stop being so reliant on this ridiculous channel. And I had this guy come up to me from Amazon, loved it, thought it was really good. I was shocked. I thought he was going to yell at me. And he gave me a statistic that I don't know is entirely true, or maybe I misunderstood what he meant, but he told me 73% of sales on Amazon US last year came from international sellers. They could have an entity in the States, or they may not have an entity in the States, but 73%. So that tells me that the cost of Amazon is consistently rising. The cost of competition is consistently rising, but because they're from international sellers, they're able to keep their costs down. And so they're not really increasing product costs. So your margins are just getting squeezed from both ends. And so it's making it really difficult for Amazon brands to make any type of more than a single digit profit margin. And so what I like to talk about is how brands can not only diversify, but don't bite the hand that feeds you. There's ways to use off Amazon marketing initiatives to grow your Amazon business so that you're not fighting for these, random broad keywords that everyone is going after, in which case you're just never going to win. So if you actually build out your brand, people start searching your brand name, you convert more. So there's a bunch, I know it was a long-winded way of answering your question, but there's a bunch of different ways that brands can look at that.
Very long answer, but
Sorry.
You explained it really well. And the point that you mentioned about competition, the CPC, everything, the cost, everything is right. And completely agree with you. And they have been squeezed literally, right? All the Amazon sellers at the moment. So my next question will be, you have consulted a lot of brands, right? So let's assume that client came to you, right, and say, okay, look, I'm only selling on Amazon. Yeah. So is there any preference, which channel, is that the Shopify, or is that, do you want to look for other channels? What will be that order?
Probably get that question several times a day. And it's always very interesting. One of the things I always try to take into account is not only is every business very different, but so is every business owner. So is every customer. I could work with the same type of product category a billion times, but the owners are all different. They all want different things. And so it's always a different puzzle. I think that it depends on what they want. My preference, where you want to really have your own control and control your own destiny, that's more of a Shopify. But D2C is a wildly different beast. So I've obviously mentioned earlier, I feel like Amazon's comparatively pretty easy to the D2C world. D2C, it's you're dealing with attribution, you're dealing with, different messaging, you're dealing with top of funnel channels versus bottom of funnel channels. You're dealing with all these different things. So if you were a successful Amazon seller and you're ready to diversify, chances are the stupidest thing you can do is just create your own website and then think that it's going to work, right? It's just, you're so used to launch a listing, make the images look good, make sure the SEO and the copy's in a good spot, and then I'll start making money. That is absolutely not the case with a Shopify site. You have to tell people you exist. They're not just going to find you. So one of the things that I usually try to map out, if we're okay, you have no off Amazon presence, here's what we want to do to help you diversify. Very first thing I do is I look at their storefront, and I want to see, are they running sponsored brand ads to their storefront? And does their storefront have the different modules in place for someone to be able to purchase directly on the storefront? So kind of like treating it like your own Amazon website, right? What that starts to tell me is that your storefront has the ability to convert people on your storefront. Once I've proven that out, then I got to look at the product line. Is it something that is wildly differentiated, or is it something that, you kind of need to educate people on why you're better than your competitors? Or is it something that's like completely new that no one's ever heard of? That's usually better for social media, right? So I need to educate the audience. I need to teach them about the product before they even bother coming to where I want them to purchase. Then I think about who's the audience. Is it a younger audience? Is it a less expensive product? TikTok's usually the way to go. Is it something that's a little bit more expensive? Maybe it's maybe a slightly older audience. Now I'm looking at more like Meta, Instagram. So got to figure that out. Or is it a middle of funnel product? People know this thing exists. There's not a ton of competition. I can go right after where people are. Now I'm looking at something more like Google, right? So I'm going to take a really low budget. My only option on these platforms is to do like a maximize clicks, or on Meta doing like a landing page views, because Amazon won't talk back to the channels. So I'm going to now do a small budget. I'm going to test driving traffic from off Amazon to my storefront. And I'm going to see, using obviously different store codes and your attribution link in the back in the platforms, can I get my storefront to convert from off Amazon? Once I get it to convert, it may not be as profitable as everyone would like it to be. And the problem is because Amazon won't talk back to these platforms, so they can't teach themselves. So I just want to prove that it's doable. Once I prove that it's doable, then I'd start to evaluate, what did my numbers look like? How good were they? If they were what typically ends up happening, I don't want to take a huge jump into a website yet. So now what I'll look at doing is like a landing page for an individual product, or a landing page for like a category, and then that's it. And I'm going to leverage things like I'll create our own custom buttons, like available on Amazon, or if they have the ability, do like buy with Prime. And so that way I can drive traffic to a landing page, but I'm still giving the user the ability to go to Amazon. Because what I haven't proved is the traffic that I drove from off Amazon, are they people that are willing to purchase off Amazon at all? Or are they people that were already interested in Amazon and I was just sending them to Amazon? So I don't want to give up that option yet. Then let that run, prove that out. That should start to get to a relatively profitable spot. And then once you're able to see that, either scale up the profitability or go ahead and take the jump and now start to do your website. So at this point, you've kind of taken those baby steps to proving that you can convert off Amazon without spending tens of thousands of dollars on a new website before you even start advertising it. And then you also now, in this scenario, have developed some off Amazon data. So it's pixeled people from the ads you ran, emails, social followers, anything like that from driving people to a landing page. So now you've got a little bit of data you can actually work with, and you can actually start driving traffic back to that website. Then the other thing I look at, once we've gotten to that spot, if you're using like the buy with Prime functionality, they now allow you to use Amazon DSP to drive traffic back to your website. So now I can start taking that Amazon audience and incentivize them to come back to my site and actually keep the messaging, keep control of the customer, and do it that way. So it's convoluted, a little bit of baby steps here and there, but it's the least expensive way to like dip your toe in the D2C water, as opposed to like go all in and spend tens of thousands of dollars and burn through it in a matter of months.
How you connect all the dots and using Amazon as a test platform, right? You mentioned about the buy with Prime, right? So you can include that on Shopify. So what kind of results have you seen by having that buy with Prime on the website?
So I always like to caveat this so I don't get caught. I'm on their advisory council, so I work with them a lot. I'm a big fan of it. Years ago, before they even existed, I used to just create custom buttons. I used to make an available on Amazon button. I would let people go straight to the listing. I did it because I saw way too many. We actually did a bunch of tests on where we would increase like meta ad spend and evaluate how much revenue increases did we see on Shopify and what did we see on Amazon. And when we would like fluctuate ad budget, it was comparable almost every time. So we know people are going to websites, leaving and going to see if they're available on Amazon, and they do. So we were just sending people straight to the listing and say like, hey, let's, standard marketing practices, let's reduce the clicks. So when Buy with Prime came out, they reached out to me, so I was already doing it. And I was like, yeah, I want to know what you're trying to do here. And so I got involved. There are a lot of pros to it. There's a lot of cons to it. There's things I'm not a huge fan of. They usually don't like me when I say that stuff on a podcast, but like it's true. It's still Amazon. The biggest thing I always get whenever I'm talking to someone about it is like, I don't want to share my data with Amazon. While I agree, Amazon's not coming after you. You're fine. Like, don't worry about it. It's what Amazon does. They collect data. It's fine. They're not going to hurt you. I think it's okay. I think the pros far outweigh the cons, but some people have a preference to not share with Amazon. I have seen, we even did a case study with them. I have seen significant conversion rate improvements, even if you don't include the orders that you got from Buy with Prime. So let's say you get 100 orders on average, you add Buy with Prime, now you're getting 120. But I actually would see that like, okay, you added Buy with Prime, but actually 110 of those were just traditional purchases. My theory is because a lot of we're in this, right? Like, we're constantly doing this industry, so we know all the little tricks and stuff. So we're shopping and like, oh, we know why you did this pop up here and like all this stuff. The average user doesn't know that. So they see that you're selling on Amazon. It kind of builds like a little bit of more like reputable element to it. And so they're more comfortable with their purchase. Plus, Buy with Prime allows you to pull your Amazon reviews over. So you can showcase your Amazon reviews on the D2C site. So you have all this extra social proof. You have the Buy with Prime button that shows you, you work with Amazon. People feel more comfortable. They end up purchasing. But even if they go through Buy with Prime, the other side of it is like the big thing is around holidays is my favorite because, on Amazon, let's say around like Christmas, right? You're just crushing it until like maybe the day before Christmas and then things start to teeter off. D2C, that's not the case. Usually you're shipping, 5+ business days. So it's usually like a week or so prior to Christmas is where you start to see things come down. If you have Buy with Prime, it's just as if they were shopping on Amazon. So all of a sudden you're still getting 5, 6, 7 like really high peak days prior to an event that you're able to get through Buy with Prime. And then of course the big thing being you get to keep all of your own data. So while Amazon's also getting it because it's an Amazon functionality, you're getting their name, email address, phone number, etc. So you can actually control that customer's journey and their messaging going forward as opposed to Amazon, which is just a black box. Yeah. And that one's tough because everyone's really different, right? Like the big benefit of not doing it is you don't have the fees and, you can control a lot more. You can deal with pick packing and all the different nuances that you want to have from a fulfillment perspective. But like I just spoke to someone yesterday, they hate operations. They don't like dealing with warehouse. They don't like dealing with picking and packing. They would love for Amazon to deal with all of it, in which case that's when they are like, we want to start looking at MCF. So it's kind of where you have to start looking at the costs, right? Like running your own warehouse or dealing with a 3PL, running your own warehouse alone can be a chore in itself. It's a big part of the business. It's a lot of nuanced things. You're dealing with a lot of different people. Going through 3PL, you got to deal with their processes and are they good and are they picking and packing the way you want them to? And so there's nuances to that. So the question is like your time versus the cost. But that's where I would say like everyone's going to be really different on that one. Just depends on if you want to deal with it.
Cat is troubling me. It's time for his dinner. It's rubbing on my legs.
Gotta love working at home.
So I want to move on to the key metrics. How do you know that if the DTC is working properly? What are the data points that you normally look into?
Well, that's an interesting question too. So everyone likes to look at theirs very differently, right? Like Amazon brands, they look at Amazon and that's it. How much am I spending? What am I getting? If you're doing Amazon correctly, in my eyes, you're looking at a tacos, right? How much am I spending, but how much am I getting overall? Because we all know there's an effect from an SEO perspective. D2C, in my opinion, should be the exact same way. Ever since, they released iOS 14 that messed up attribution and everything, like the fact is digital marketing is becoming a lot more like traditional marketing. Back in the day, you couldn't paint the picture of an ROI on a billboard. So like, you're not going to be able to do that now. Meta is used for one thing. Google's used for another. Email's used for a different thing. SEO's used there's so many different things going on that all affect each other. So in a perfect world, I look at everything holistically first. How much are you spending on all of your marketplaces from an advertising perspective? How much are you spending on marketing for your D2C site collectively? How much are you getting in return? That's like the ultimate tacos, right? Like everything across the board. Because the one thing that a lot of brands don't factor in is they always say like, oh, my meta ads aren't working, or this isn't working, that isn't working, etc. But sometimes it's actually the meta ads are working, but the product line is conducive of someone who's more likely to shop on Amazon. And so we've seen many scenarios where all of a sudden branded traffic on Amazon is skyrocketing, but the results we're getting on the site aren't as good. That could be a conversion rate issue. It could be 500 other things. So there's things to look at. So looking at everything holistically allows you to kind of understand from a top level and then break it down by channel. So then from the D2C side, then that's when you go, okay, if everything I have that's directly focused to D2C, how is that performing, knowing that there's a little bit of a gray area over to Amazon, and even sometimes vice versa. There are definitely scenarios where I've seen you can almost tell consumers are jumping from Amazon to a D2C site. So the consumer's becoming smarter, and they're knowing that, like, if I go to your site, you probably have a pop-up for like 10% off, and I know that I want this, but I don't need it tomorrow, so I'll go get the discount. So like they hop around. And so because users are doing their own due diligence and they're just shopping wherever they're most comfortable, you have to realize that your business is the entire online business, not just your Amazon business, D2C business, Walmart business. I think siloing it like that can actually do a business more harm than good. I think it kind of depends on the brand. Social media is a great place to do it, right? Like it could just be you're really good at getting conversation going on your organic social media. Other brands, they leverage like Facebook groups. Couple brands we work with leverage Slack groups. Some of the brands we work with that have a B2B element to them, they have LinkedIn groups. So like there's situations to just try to get everyone into one place. We even have one guy who just created his own forum. So like there's ways to do that. It just depends on the audience, right? Like some people, like if I sell water bottles, like you're not getting a group out of that. Like I don't know what they're going to talk about. It's not going to be very fun. But if you have a very niche audience, like for example, literally right before this episode, we have our own podcast. I was filming on ours, and it was a guy who sells to tattoo artists. So like he's got a Facebook group, but he's also got a Slack group going for some of them. And that is an audience that if you can get them all talking, they're just going to start going, and word of mouth is going to spread. It's going to be great. Other stuff, it's not always the case, and it's not always that easy. So then it's more about how can I keep them entertained and provide additional value so that I can stay in front of them as much as physically possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it depends on, like you said, a lot of different factors. Like really like high-end, like premium stuff, like they almost don't even bother with Amazon. For most products, I would say starting off on Amazon is the smartest thing to do because it's a really inexpensive way to prove out the viability of the product. Amazon's got pre-existing traffic. It's got people already ready to shop. They're literally there to shop, so they are going to convert. So if you've got a good product, you're going to find out pretty quick on Amazon. The problem is the scaling, right? You're now publicly showing people, I've found a product that does well. Well, here come your knockoffs, so buckle up and enjoy those. And then at a certain point, you're going to be hitting a wall, right? You can only scale so much because your CPCs start going up. You get more and more competition. Obviously, like I said, you deal with Amazon's fees going. So at a certain point, it depends on how much you want to control your own future. There are definitely products that just do better on Amazon. There's nuanced things that, it's just if you're at like a drugstore and you walk by like the checkout register and there's like a few things there that you're like, oh, let me grab this real quick. Amazon's meant for that type of stuff. But it's the other products that you went shopping for where it's like, okay, I need to educate people. There's a billion different products on Amazon that have a ton of competition, and the only way that you can really differentiate your product versus the others is to further educate the audience before they make their decision. Amazon is all about price. If you are the least expensive, chances are you're going to get the volume. In a few cases, as long as you've got the higher reviews, you could be a couple bucks more expensive than your competitor and they'll purchase. Otherwise, you've got to educate them on why you're more expensive and better than the competition. And the best way to do that is most likely from an off Amazon perspective so that you can control your messaging and educate more to explain why you're better than your competitors or why this new product that didn't exist before all of a sudden does exist. It kind of, when you start to hit that wall, that's when you have to start looking at those things.
Great answer, Andrew. And my next question will be like on Amazon, let's assume that you sold 100,000 orders, right? But you don't have any customer data. Compared to your own website, you have the customer data and you can retarget, right? through email and stuff like that. So what kind of impact those will have on valuation of the company?
I mean, so yeah. Oh, I mean, the company that has its own data would 100% end up with a higher valuation because you now have another asset to sell. You have data. And that a lot of people that's look at software companies. That's where they make most of their business or most of their revenue when they exit is it's just selling their own data. Or you look at these really big conglomerates that we sell this cool software, but the reality is they're actually selling the data that they're getting out of the software. That's where everyone makes their money. So the more data you can bring in, the higher valuation you're going to get and the significantly larger buyer pool you're going to get because someone wants to leverage that data. So if you're selling your business on Amazon, you're like, okay, it's time for me to get rid of this thing. You're literally only able to sell what you've got left in stock, the relationships you have with manufacturers, et cetera, your process, and then the projected profit. Outside of that, that's pretty much it. If you actually have a D2C element, you now have everything I just listed, plus you have your own asset of your own website, and then you have your asset of all of your social media and your email marketing and the data that comes along with those. People that visit your website on a regular basis, people in your email list, people that are subscribed to you on social media. That is a significantly larger amount of data that you now have to sell that makes the business sound that much more interesting as opposed to Amazon, which is you have no data because Amazon keeps all of it.
Andrew, and you mentioned at the starting as well, 2x with the normal brand and to 5.5, I assume that you mentioned. So that's eye-opener for a lot of brands who only rely on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy. It's also even if you're even if you're not looking at the exit, it's having that data and leveraging it to improve your Amazon business is also a great way to make more money so that you're not so reliant on fighting with these constantly increasing CPCs.
And for brands that, let's assume they are scaling really fast. And normally what I've seen is that, the operations side will have some kind of breakdown because they are scaling so fast and it's very hard to keep up with that. So, for example, your company Blue Tasker, how they will look after it, means in order to avoid that, basically this kind of operation side breaking down.
Typically, that's not. So we're full service on the marketing side, so we don't really get that involved on the operational side. I mean, we'll give them our advice and stuff. Our account strategists kind of act as fractional CMOs to a certain extent. So they're definitely more on the marketing side, but we'll give insight into operationals. That really comes down to what we have the ability to control from a marketing perspective. Rarely are we ever going to be oh, yeah, you're crushing it, so let's pull back because operationally you can't, we'll just probably slow scaling. There's tons of times where hey, we're consistently increasing ad spend as long as we're hitting certain target ROAS. And if they're hey, warehouse team's having trouble keeping up with it, okay, let's just keep spend where it is for now. We'll maintain it. Maybe we focus a little bit more on bottom line and do that while they clean up anything operational, and then we scale it back up. So those are kind of nuanced things, but there's ways that you can kind of push and pull without losing that much.
Just give us an example on, let's say they were only relying on Amazon and then they came to you and then you managed to, X amount of sales, increase X amount of sales or something. Can you give us a scenario, a thing that you have done?
Yeah, would be a good. Well, the one that was our bigger one that I've worked with this guy for years, and so he was finally all right, let's do this. It was he'll probably do this year 30 or 40 million on Amazon, and he had nothing on D2C. Literally he had months with zero. And so it was a collegiate apparel brand, and so we talked to him about it and we completely rebranded. New name, new logo, completely new website, all the new stuff. Originally started off with available on Amazon, but then Buy with Prime came out, so we switched them out. And now, I mean, it's never, the revenue is always the fancy number, right? Because that's really the vanity metric. They will never do 30 or 40 million off Amazon. They just won't. There are big competitors out there that are doing billions of dollars in that space, but the profitability, the percentages are significantly higher on D2C. So while he's doing single-digit profitability on Amazon, he's easily doing double digits, probably closer to 20, 25%, relatively easily off Amazon. From an off, I don't remember his D2C numbers off the top of my head, but I know that like last year he was on track to do like, I think it was 10, I believe. So he had a real nice scale from it. So it was looking really nicely in terms of how we were able to put those all together, but then also take some of that data and be able to drive that directly back to his Amazon as well to continue to feed that beast, because we don't want to forget about, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, basically. Thank you.
Great advice. For the audience, where can they find you? Do you offer any like free consultation or any kind of stuff?
Yeah, we do. Just shoot me an email, andrew@bluetusker.com. It's BLUETUSKR.com. Obviously, you can go to the website too. Or feel free to reach out to me. I'm also on pretty much every social media channel. It's just at Andrew Maff, M-A-F-F, like French fry. And that's where I'm at. Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.